Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Doctor in a Bikini. This week, we're going to talk about something that we all fear: failure and making mistakes. And if you read the episode title, of course, I like to show how life and competing intersect. So I said we all trip on stage sometimes because, of course, while I share these life experiences, I'm going to tie it back into competing and the very real mistakes that we can make in our off season, during prep, all of the things. So, how on earth did I arrive at the decision of today's episode? Well, let me just tell you, I had quite the week. You know, one of those weeks where you just feel like the universe is like, we're trying to show you a little lesson of patience, faith, trusting that's all going to work out, following your dreams, all that fun stuff. But really, the epiphany of what episode I wanted to do today happened while getting my nails done. Now, how on earth does Shannon getting her nails done on a Sunday morning translate into the theme of Doctor in Bikini podcast? I'll tell you. So, I am sitting across the way from my nail tech, and to be honest, the first half of the experience was super silent. It was great. I'm in the massage chair, I'm doing some nice, quiet time. And side note, do y'all grapple with the same dilemma as me? Like, is it best to talk to the person in front of you? Is it rude if you're not in the mood to talk? If you talk a lot, do you think that they're like annoyed and exhausted? Do you think they appreciate the silent clients? I don't know. Let me know your thoughts, because sometimes I'm like, I just need to be silent, but I'm also like nervous that I'm being rude if I'm not being talkative or like on my phone or reading a book. If you know, you know. Anyways, on track with the actual episode here. So, the first half was just me being super quiet. Connor's next to me vibing because, I had to bring him to get his feety beans done because low-key, he loves to have his feet done too. Second half, I was like, all right, I got to get my nails done. I am officially flying out to LA next Friday for the Dancing with the Stars interview, which super pumped. I had a really emotional week, so it's kind of like a lot of things going on all at once. But the second half, her and I are face to face. So she's like, oh, how's your morning going? And I'm like, great. How's yours going? Like the polite exchanges you do. Because at first you're like, this person doesn't really want to hear my life story. But then she goes, tell me about what the rest of your day looks like. Do you have a busy day? So I said, yeah, I've got some work stuff, some meal prep stuff. And she goes, oh, work, like boring. And I don't know what it was, but I just had an epiphany that I just felt like being honest. And I was like, well, it's not work. It's like fun work, podcast work, but I'm doing like a really hard episode for me later. And she's like, oh my God, you do a podcast? That's so cool. She's like, tell me about the episode that you're gonna do. And I said, well, I kind of had a rough week about failure, and I had a lot of stuff like emotions wise going on, but to be honest, and she said, what's the name? I said, Dr. Bikini. So she's like, what's the context? And I said, well, it is about competing, but really for me, it's about where life and competing meet. And that includes sharing my life experiences through prep, through off season, just in general, how the heck I navigate being a human being and how I take the lessons from the stage and implement them in my life and vice versa. So, ironically, the girl next to me, she turns to me, she's like, oh my God, competing sucks. I was like, what? And she goes, oh, I used to be a figure competitor. I hated it. It's terrible. I mean, those weren't exactly her words, because God forbid she tunes in. She's like, that's not what I said. But she was sharing with me, at least from my impression, that she didn't really have the most lasting positive experience. Like it brought out a lot more like body dysmorphia, and it challenged things like friendship and relationship priorities, all the things that we all experience. And I shared a little bit back about how I used to think I would never get into the sport because I had body dysmorphia, and how getting into the sport and my reason for it really changed my perception with health, I guess, for the better. And like I said, I usually assume people don't want the whole life story, but really just I feel like being in the sport challenges me to be more insightful about life in general. And it's a whole other challenge getting on a microphone, sharing a week that was super less than ideal. And don't get me wrong, I think even quote bad weeks, I feel like there's always glass half full moments. But because it was so challenging, I felt like it would have been a disservice and it wouldn't have been the honest podcast environment if I didn't come on here and share how the week went and what my takeaways were. So, and then I'm going to get into some of the common mistakes and failures and things with competing. Because, again, for those of you that are looking for more competition heavy content, like maybe you just got done with a show and you feel like you're failing your reverse diet, or, maybe you're starting competing and you're like, oh my God, I totally sucked because I didn't get all my workouts in. I didn't get all my cardio or my steps or my water in. I'm going to get to all that too. But first, I got to share the real life applications because, to be honest, that's what translates onto stage as well. All right, but from the top, shall we? Let's rehash the beginning of Shannon's week. And I'm going to share with you a very funny breaking point just for a visual. And then all the way up until yesterday, which was like rock bottom for me, which might sound dramatic to you, but it'll make sense why to me it really stung because I care. But the top of the week, short story, keeping it short. I had a patient that was X amount of weeks out from surgery, and I made the medical decision to discharge from them from therapy. Like I said, I'm going to keep it short, that way I don't bore you, but basically I felt like this person was totally competent. Him and I had great communication about where he was at in his recovery. I went over a very, very in-depth, detailed plan of care of things for them to do in the gym, just like I do with my competitors, right? I went over, all of the precautions and risks. It was very thorough. The entire hour was education, and this person felt like they were in a place where they wanted to be done with PT. Because let's be honest, most of you listening, if you're not a PT and if you've been a patient, usually you're like, when can I stop coming to PT? When can I just be like free as a bird? Release me. I'm tired of having an appointment. As much as I love you, Shannon, my physical therapist, I kind of don't want these appointments every single week. It adds up financially, it adds up time commitment wise. And as a human being, I'm a provider. I'm not money hungry, and I always have the best interest of my patient. So, meeting the person where they were at, how they looked, the safety overall, I made the medical decision with my patient to discharge them with a very in depth home program and gym program. Well, what happened next, you ask? I am so glad you asked. I get my first angry phone call from a medical assistant chewing my butt out. And gosh, not to throw like people under the bus, but basically I felt like the place that I'm contracted at, I didn't feel like I had the support about my competency as a medical provider because, of course, the medical assistant works for a surgeon who is in charge of a very established NBA team here. Oh no. So basically, I've got the medical provider that's responsible for the sports team, and they're apparently the most popular and the most renowned in the entire state of Arizona. And that's who I pissed off, which in turn, I'm contract. So the people that I'm with, they know me, but who are they going to support? Are they going to support this person who's got a name for themselves or someone who's contract? Who's the easier guy to blame, right? Well, if you know me, you know that I can feel bad very easily, especially if I care, especially if I was thorough and really thought it out and I feel like I'm being misunderstood. So that was kind of a low blow confidence wise because you can imagine if you in your line of work, maybe somebody is really famous in your line of work as far as the general profession, not PT, but medicine. Maybe for you, it's like, I don't know. I don't know what you do, whoever's listening here, but it makes you question, even just for a moment, even though you know yourself, it makes you question yourself and think, oh my gosh, like, am I an idiot? Am I not qualified? Did I do something wrong? Especially if you value your professionalism and you want to be seen like you do a really good job. And that's me always. I am very thorough with my patients, with my clients. I'm a Virgo, I'm type A. So trust me when I say I value being detail oriented and being very communicative. That is just me. I mean, I have a podcast, so I like communicating and sharing. But uh where was I going with that? Oh, basically, I was already in a vulnerable space because if you've listened to the last few episodes, I'm in the middle of potentially being sent off and being the only medical provider on site on a tour bus for 3 months. So you can imagine, for me, my confidence is probably a little vulnerable at the moment because it's something I've never done before. And here's somebody that is, quote, a big dog in the entire state of Arizona that is pissed at my medical decision. Oof. Happy Monday, Shannon. Then, again, try not to name names and be as little detail oriented with this part as possible. But within the same 24 hours, and I promise this is going somewhere because I am very much a glass half full, not a let me focus on the negative. I'm just painting the entire picture for you of um, the emotional decisions and stuff this week. Anyways, the next thing that happened, I essentially had, again, I'm contract, so I am not necessarily seen as a team member, right? That's kind of the, I guess, downside of being contract is you are there as a body, especially with the business part of medicine. You are there to make more money for said company. That might be controversial, but I don't care. That's just the truth. Travelers aren't necessarily always seen the same with every single place they're at. There's awesome places, but there's also places that they might not see you as human. They just see you as dollar signs. So another traveler came up to me and they said, "Hey, I can't help but notice, have you felt that this person in particular seems to be a little bit rude towards me or towards us?" And I said, "Yeah, I mean, I've kept it to myself because, I think that that's just them, but definitely I've noticed that I get treated kind of differently. I'm sorry that you're feeling the same way." And they said, "Yeah, this is what this person said to me." And basically, within the same breath, someone turned around and said, "Yeah, you guys aren't liked because you're travelers." I said, "Because we're travelers?" And this person said, "Yeah, I mean, you aren't here to have feelings. You're here to make money, and that's it." And basically, this person thinks that everyone here needs to get over it and not have an opinion. You're here to make money for us. And I thought, wow, I was already feeling very low with the whole surgeon incident. But man, now to know that literally within our roof, the place that I'm responsible for reporting to every day, I am basically seen as not a human being. Like, that feels, cover your little ears, that feels super shitty. Now, the logical side of my brain realizes that that's a generalization. It has nothing to do with me. Yes, the behavior seems to match that statement that was shared, but I was like, man, like, I don't know why I'm taking this so personally, because if that's this person's view about all travelers and their attitude matches that, it's not me personally, but it's really hard not to take that personally, especially after the whole situation with the surgeon. Basically, staff members kind of were like, "Yep, we're going to always take the surgeon's side here." So it kind of made me feel like, again, this is going to sound dramatic, but I think it's easy to explain things with like caveman emotions, right? It just made me feel like neither me or my opinions mattered, for one. And two, it just felt like every little thing, for some reason, during the week in the clinic, it just felt like I was doing things so wrong. Miscommunication with the patient, or maybe some people just feeling like their pain isn't getting better. It was just, man, I felt like my confidence was just taking such a dive in the clinic. And I was like, I don't know what it is. And here's the funny part. So this is how I knew that I was being a sensitive Sally. I was like, all right, you know what? I just need to leave the clinic for lunch. Let me just go get some air. Let's reset. You know what? I'm going to go to Chick-fil-A. And being a competitor, mind you, this part never gets easy. Um, Feeling like you're, quote, not doing enough with your food. Maybe you could be better about getting protein. Maybe you feel like you could be better about getting your steps, all the above in your off season. And 100% all of those. Yes, I felt all those emotions this week. I kept hitting snooze on my alarms during the week, so I didn't wake up to go to the gym most of the week. What lifts that I did get in, it felt like it was just partial. It wasn't everything on the to-do list, right? There were just like random scheduling conflicts where instead of going to the gym, I had to go pick up Bowman, our dog. It just, it just felt like things were stacking up as far as what I'm not doing. And that's so not a fair theme to carry in our heads, but to paint you the whole picture, that was kind of the starting theme that I kept trying to shove to the side. And I thought, nope, nope, Shannon, focus on what you are doing. Don't get emotional about this. Let it roll off your back. Then I get to Chick-fil-A, right? Here's the funny part. Here's how I knew that I was just having a day and that's okay. So if the Chick-fil-A by you, I don't know if all Chick-fil-A's have this, but the Chick-fil-A by us, by my current contracted place, is the only Chick-fil-A that I've been to that it's like this. So they have a, carry out option, they have the drive-through, and then they have like the designated parking spots. Well, this Chick-fil-A in particular, they have something called, what is it? It's not the drive-through, but it's like a drive, but it is a drive-through. I don't remember the words for it, but this is the only Chick-fil-A that I've been to that has it. So I happened to pick the drive-through option, not like the regular one where you order, but where you pick up your order in the drive-through. So you drive up, there's 2 arrows. One to the left, meaning I haven't ordered my food yet. One to the right means I have. Just scan the QR code and follow the yellow brick road, right? So I'm thinking it's dummy proof. And also, my mind is going a million miles a minute. I'm trying not to self-analyze. I'm trying not to be emotional. I've still got, I think, 14 or 15 more patients the rest of my day. So I'm just trying to make sure that my mind is right, trying to think about all the things I want to get on my to-do list, trying to get back to lunch, to the clinic in time just so I can get my steps in. I get to the QR code, I scan it, and then I follow the yellow brick road. At least I think that I'm doing the right thing. So I pull up, and it's hard to explain what I did because I feel like I was just kind of a shell of a human at this point, but point being, I went the wrong direction. So there's 2 lanes, and I assumed you want to stick to the lane that you're in, not merge. So instead of merging, I stick to the lane on the right. And as I'm waiting, I can't help but notice for some reason, I'm like, man, why is everyone staring at my car? Like all the drivers in the drive-through lane, they're staring at my car. The workers are staring at my car. Like, is there something on my car? Is there like a dinger? Are they just like admiring my car? I don't know what it is. So I'm sitting there, and again, I'm just kind of in my own head. I'm super anxious, just painting the whole picture. And finally, this person brings over my order, and oh my gosh, this is like the perfect lesson of be nice to people because you never know what they're going through. This person laid into me about, for future reference, like what I did was wrong and where I went was wrong and how like I need to be able to follow signs better. And it was just like this whole thing about getting into the wrong lane at Chick-fil-A. And let me tell you, it's so ridiculous that it's so funny. I I told Connor, I called him on the way home. I was like, I was this close to crying in a Chick-fil-A parking lot. I was like, holy cow, I was like, that might have been a new low for me. I literally felt like the Chick-fil-A lady was gonna make me cry over something so dumb. Like, I didn't actually feel like I needed to cry. But then as soon as this person's laying into me about something else that I did wrong, my brain, I was like, what else could I do wrong today? I was like, oh my God. So I don't know. And I thought that was my low point, and then I swear I'm wrapping up my personal stories here. But the big, big, big theme of the episode is the next thing that I fudged up on. So, some of you listening, I'm sure, are a business owner. Maybe you have a product. Maybe you're a coach and you have clients. Maybe you're a parent and you've just felt this way before. Maybe you have felt like you've failed a friend before. Uh, you know, maybe you're one of the many celebrities that they had to fail a million times before they succeeded, because I did Google that to make myself feel better. But man, I had my first first big failure in a long time. Like probably since I didn't get into PT school, I haven't cried this hard over a failure of mine since then. And I say this because the nail lady today, when I was telling her just the very brief, like, oh, what are your nails for? And oh, you have that going on this weekend. She goes, man, you have such an exciting life. You're you're a doctor, you have a podcast, and you're a competitor. That's so cool. Like you have such a cool life. And it was just such a good reminder to me that on the outside, everything is just such roses for everybody, right? And that's exactly why I have this podcast to share. Yes, I choose to make the best of what I can, but that doesn't mean that I might not be one bad parking spot away from having a mental breakdown in a Chick-fil-A parking lot. And it's not about the Chick-fil-A at that point. It's just about, being our own worst critics and feeling like there's more that we want to do. There's things that we want to be better at, and there's things that we're always trying to reach for, and it is so hard to be present in the moment and to reflect on the things you did right that day. Maybe instead of focusing on the patients that aren't getting better, maybe focus on the people that I discharged because they were feeling better, or people that opened up to me about their very personal lives this week, because there were a lot of people this week that said, thank you for listening. I really needed to talk about this today. In fact, that same Monday, I remember looking at the other traveler. I said, I think I've got a sign on my forehead that says, which I'm totally fine with it, that says, share all the traumas that you need to be heard today. Because the amount of life experiences I heard from people that morning are things that people should never have to experience. So me getting emotional in a Chick-fil-A parking lot felt so stupid after all of the things that I heard that morning. I was like, why am I getting emotional about my problems? But again, it just goes to show we all have things that we're navigating. We all have things that we're hurting inside about, and we need to be kind to each other and patient with each other. But this next thing, oh my God, I had full on mental breakdown about it because it just felt like it was the cherry on top of Shannon's personal failures of the week. And that was disappointing my first client ever. I mean, I totally let them down in their words. And, I got my first really long email from this person, and, they're super nice. They did nothing wrong. I honestly felt so heartbroken that I clearly missed the ball on the communication and on the expectations, even though for me, that was always so, so important. It's my worst nightmare for someone to feel like I let them down, or I didn't communicate properly, or that I didn't help them, or, whichever. Me especially, I don't want to say nobody cares more, but trust me when I say that I lay awake at night thinking about how I can do better and how I can help people better. So when someone or something that I care about totally feels like it failed, it's just like, oh, gut punch. Like I said, it brought me back to when I didn't get into PT school. And it just felt like such a deep personal failure. And, this person doesn't know that I already had a really tough week work wise, that I'm nervous about what's to come. There were some family things going on this week. We had an emergency that morning. I mean, literally, it just felt like the sky was falling in the most dramatic way possible this week. But for me to feel like I made somebody else feel unsupported just gut wrenched me. So I share that because I think it's so important. Because again, I'm sure some of you listening are coaches or have products, and I think it is so transparent for somebody that is successful and has a life that they're proud of and has, what seems like shiny objects in their life. Like, yeah, I tell you listening that I have the Dancing with the Stars opportunity coming up. But I'm also going to tell you that not everything is shiny all the time. And for me, what I did, actually, I talked to a friend of mine, and it's something I'm working on, being more honest with people, because sometimes I feel, like I said with my patients, sometimes it's hard to feel like you have the right to share that you're also struggling with people. And I reached out to my friend and said, I'm really struggling because this and this happened. And they gave me such a good idea, which is another reason why I wanted to come on here. She said, that's really awful. This happened to you. How about you reflect and journal about the people that you did help this week, or the things that did go well this week? Because I'll be honest, it cuts so deep, and I'm not going to share personal I'm not going to share the whole thing that they emailed me because I want to protect their identity. And again, I understand where they were coming from, so it's not about them, it's about how I felt with the situation. But when I tell you that I cried so hard into Connor because I just said, you know what, I want to quit it all. I said, I don't even want to do the podcast. I don't want to do the posing prehab. I don't want to do Dancing with the Stars. I don't want to do any of it. I just want to, do my 9 to 5 boring job and just be home. And again, I needed to get all my emotions out. I needed to be dramatic, but Connor said, I'm not going to let you quit. I said, why? I said, what, who am I even helping here? Like, if I let this person down, what's the point? Why do I even bother? Why do I go forward with it? Who am I kidding? And God, I'm trying not to get emotional about it because I'm just being so honest with you. It was a tough day. And if you've ever felt like you've failed before, you understand. And he said, I'm not going to let you quit because if you quit, you're quitting on yourself. And I just thought, oh my God, how special is it that we have people in our lives that when we do fail, um, that they're there to believe in us and to push us forward. And I was looking, like I said, I Googled it because I was like, you know what? I know that I've seen something inspirational on Instagram about, someone who wanted to quit, but then on the 101th time that they did it, 101th? Oh my God. That's not even, oh, you know what I'm saying. Um, that it finally worked. I mean, Walt Disney, he was told that he lacked imagination and had no good ideas. Or Fred Astaire, he was told he couldn't act, couldn't sing, and, someone came for him saying he was slightly bald and can dance just a little. Or, Stephen King, the amount of times that he threw out his first book, Carrie, and he received 30 rejections, but if it weren't for his wife digging it out of the trash and telling him to resubmit it, then he never would have had all those hundreds of books published. And I'm sure everyone's, heard Michael Jordan. He said that he missed more than 9,000 or so shots in his career. But, even though he had lost almost 300 games, and I think he said like 20 something times, he had been trusted to take the game winning shot and he missed. And here I am failing one person and wanting to throw in the towel. And I think the good that can come from that when we fail, when we disappoint people, when we mess up so bad that we just want to quit, it teaches us probably the biggest lessons, and it's probably the most important to move forward. And I share this with you listening because maybe a lot of you are just entering your first off season, and maybe this is your first time failing a reverse diet. Because newsflash, I don't think anybody, and I could be wrong, but I would be so shocked if anybody told me that they have never fudged up their reverse diet, or that they had binge sessions during a stressful week. I'm not going to lie to you. I had like 14 Kit Kats last night. Yep, I said what I said. I had the bag in front of me and I knew it was wrong. Every single bite, I was like, why am I doing this? I haven't done this in forever. Why am I choosing now? But just because you might be ruining your off season, or and I hate to be dramatic, but maybe you're, like I said, binging a lot, or maybe you feel really in your head with body dysmorphia. Maybe you had a really bad coaching experience, or maybe you literally tripped and fell on stage, or you didn't like your stage shots because you let your core go, your hair got stuck, you um messed up your tan. Maybe you did DIY makeup and hair for the first time and you hated how it looked. Maybe you didn't get your lifts or your steps in, like I said. And all these things internally, again, caveman emotion, can make us feel like we're failing and like we're not doing enough. And enough to who, for one? I think the most important thing is, yes, acknowledge the feelings you have, but choose to put your foot forward in front of the other, even when you really don't want to. Like, I'll be honest, before I got onto the podcast episode today, I had a client call of somebody that, they were wanting to be a new client. And usually I am actually really comfortable and relaxed and confident with every single client I talk to, new, older, established, whichever. Because of the events this last week, I've just been nervous about everything, questioning everything. And a lot of that has nothing to do with the week. I think it probably has to do with this giant 3-day interview that I'm about to embark next weekend, and I'm scared. But it's so easy to pick ourselves apart and to want to quit and just to second guess all of our basic things that we usually do anyways. And I hope that whatever you are trying and failing at right now, or trying and making mistakes with right now, that you don't let it deter you away from the goal. Like the girl I mentioned earlier at the nail salon, I had to stop myself from sharing my opinions with her because, again, I really try hard not to share something unless asked. But it was really tough for me. Here's this person saying really strong absolutes like competing is terrible. I'll never do it again. And she just shared her reasonings with me without me asking. But she said, I had kids, and I'm paraphrasing because God forbid she's listening and I'm getting it wrong, but I had kids, it's selfish in a sense, is what I was gathering from her, to spend time on me and not with them. She's like, I was forced to work out this much, and the sport gave me body dysmorphia, which, if you've been a listener here for a long time, you know that I personally don't believe that the sport itself gives you dysmorphia. I think, unfortunately, us in society, we have a lot of behaviors and a lot of coping mechanisms, and we have a lot of internalizing that we do with criticizing ourselves and how our bodies look. And unfortunately, I think if we don't have the tools, the guidance, the self awareness, and the space in our lives to deal with what already exists underneath, then yes, the microscope of competing brings out the perfect recipe of the ingredients that were already there. But again, I'm a self aware human, and I'm not going to interject my beliefs onto this random stranger that just happened to share with me. But for those who are choosing to listen to the podcast, I hope that the first time you fail, the first time you have dysmorphic thoughts, because that's very, very real. I never mean to discredit that. I hope that you keep going and that you dig deeper and that you try to take the time to understand, why am I so upset? Why am I making myself feel like a failure? Why don't I feel confident? Why am I second guessing myself? What can I do better? What is this teaching me? What is this very, very low lesson teaching me? How can I prevent it next time? And Lord knows I have had those lessons on stage. There's times I've gotten my tan wrong. Like I said, if you listened around my Junior Nats episode, that was when I got told that I looked old, green, and greasy. So there's certain things with my tan and my makeup and my hair that I know not to do again. There's things I did with traveling that were not so great the first time. I traveled all across the country to go to a national show, that the next time I traveled, I was better equipped and I knew what to do better that time. And I think that that's the beauty of the sport, is it helps us to identify strengths we have, things we've done well, and yes, the things that we can do better on. And I appreciate that because it has made me more aware with tough weeks like the ones I just had, where, again, it sounds so dramatic, but I just felt like a failure. And that was a really hard pill to swallow, because I don't think I feel like that deeply very often. And I definitely didn't think I was going to come onto the podcast and talk about it, because I thought, oh my gosh, you know, uh, does that sound Debbie Downer? Does that sound too honest? Does that sound, not confident? And it's not, that doesn't matter. I think I think what's best is just being human at the end of the day and sharing with each other the times that we do inevitably fail. But that doesn't mean that we stop, and that doesn't mean that we're any less successful in the long run. It's just we learn and we come better as competitors and better as people. So, I don't know about you, but I feel lighter. And I hope that this message finds you well on a Monday morning or whenever you're listening, because at the end of the day, life is too short. Life is too short not to be kind to those around us, not to be mindful of the week that people around us might be having. And life is definitely too short not to go after what we want in life. So I hope that you get after whatever you are striving towards this week. The next time you hear from me, I don't know if they're flying me home on Sunday or if they're flying me home on Saturday. So either way, I will be providing a Dancing with the Stars update because at this moment of time, again, scary, I have no idea what the itinerary is, what to pack, what to wear, what I'm even doing over there for my interview. It's good, scary, but it's definitely scary. So I will keep you posted, and I appreciate you all for listening. I hope you have a great week, and I'll talk to you later. Bye, guys.